Hey guys, today I'm going to show you my version of the just egg replacement. I have actually been playing around with my recipe for a while. So this recipe, it was based off of the recipe by Liv B, and I will link that down below. I'll also link the Edgy Veg's recipe down below. Mine is, when I look at the ingredients, it's kind of a mix of the two. There's really only so many things you can put in this recipe. What I like about this is that you get to control what's in it. You know what's in it. It's a lot less expensive. And there's this TikTok recipe, pizza omelette, that's made with a tortilla as well, that I kind of want to try, which made me think that I should probably show you this recipe because I'm going to make it in order to make that recipe. The most important ingredient you're going to need are these mung beans. Now these are the yellow ones, the split ones without the skin. You might find some in your store that are the green whole ones. Those are not the ones that you want. They look like very small yellow lentils, but these are what's going to give us the egg. So very important. I found mine at my local Real Canadian Superstore. It's a large grocery store here in Calgary. You should be able to find them in either in the bean and lentil, dried bean and lentil section, or maybe the ethnic food section. If not, you can order them online, but they're a key ingredient in this recipe. And then we're going to want a little bit of tapioca starch, also known as tapioca flour, a small amount of olive oil. If you're oil free, you can leave this out. Then some nutritional yeast. This is not the yeast that you use to bake bread. This is deactivated yeast. And that's what you want. Bob's Red Mill sells it, easy to find. A little bit of baking powder, some non-dairy milk. I prefer plain almond milk in this recipe. And then the kala namak, the Indian black salt. This ingredient has a real sort of sulfury, eggy taste and adds a lot of that to the mixture. If you don't like it, if you don't have it, just use regular salt. But it can be found online and at specialty spice stores. And then some onion powder, some garlic powder, a little bit of turmeric to give that yellow color. I'll be mixing this in my Vitamix blender, which is a high-speed blender. If you don't have a Vitamix or high-speed blender, just use your regular blender. But that will make this even more important because I prefer to strain my mixture. So what I've done here is put my nut milk bag over a large measuring cup. You can also use cheesecloth. You don't have to strain it, but just remember, if you do use your nut milk bag, it will stain yellow because of the turmeric that we're using in this recipe. So you may want to use cheesecloth. As usual, I'll link the full recipe down below. I have already soaked my mung beans. I actually just soaked them, put them in water this morning. Hi, Soph. Sophie says hi. All you can see is their tail. I already soaked them this morning. You can soak them overnight, but they do require soaking because they will blend so much easier. So all I'm going to do is rinse these, drain them and rinse them, and try not to spill them all. So into the cup of your blender, you're going to put in the soaked mung beans. Again, these are split and peeled mung beans. All of the ingredients except the tapioca flour are going to go in now. And the reason I don't put the tapioca flour in at the beginning of the blending process is because this mixture will warm up a little bit in the high-speed blender, and I don't want the tapioca flour to start thickening it. So I blend it quite a bit, and then I'll add it in just for the last little bit. So we've got our mung beans in here. To our mung beans, we are going to add 1 cup of unsweetened non-dairy milk. I like almond because it doesn't give it a flavor, a milk flavor, whereas oat milk will give it a flavor, and I find even soy milk kind of flavors it a little bit. So 1 cup of that. So that was half a cup of mung beans that have been soaked for multiple hours or overnight. 2 tablespoons of the nutritional yeast. 1 teaspoon of each of the onion and garlic powders. This recipe is super easy, and you can have it in a jar in your fridge for about a week to make whatever dishes you want to make. Spanish omelet with, you know, where you line your frying pan with onions and potatoes. I've used it to make quiche. And then half a teaspoon of turmeric. This will give it that yellow color. We're going to want 2 tablespoons of oil, 1 teaspoon of the baking powder. This is the kala namak. Start with a half a teaspoon. You can always add more after. And now before I add the teaspoon of tapioca starch, I am going to blend this a little bit and get it fairly smooth, and then I'll add that in. So now I'm going to add the teaspoon of tapioca starch. So if you don't have a high-speed blender, especially, it'll be important, I think, to strain it. But I like to strain it anyways because I don't like I want my egg mixture to be as smooth as it can be. And even though I have a high-speed blender, it can still have some fiber bits in there, and I don't want that. So I'm going to add a teaspoon of the tapioca starch. And what that will do is thicken it when you're cooking it, which obviously we want because that's what eggs do. Then I'm going to blend it a little bit more till that's all in there, and then I am going to strain it. Okay, so I'm just going to strain this now. So just slowly squeeze it to get the liquid out. It's a little bit messy, but it is worthwhile. Again, you can do this with cheesecloth. I like to strain mine. And now I'm just going to pour this into this jar, and I will show you how I'm going to use it. I'm just going to assemble my ingredients for this next recipe, and I'll be right back. Okay, done my dishes, and now we're ready for the second step of that pizza omelet recipe. So the first thing you're going to need is a frying pan and some pepperoni. I'm using this Gusta. I'm using this Gusta vegan pepperoni. Some mozzarella. I'm using the Violife vegan mozzarella. And some Italian seasoning. And of course your egg mixture. You will need olive oil for this recipe because we're going to be cooking it in the frying pan. And that, and some pizza sauce and some tortilla or wraps, the large size. So I have these pesto ones. So the first thing we're going to do is cut up some pepperoni and lay it into the frying pan. I've never tried this recipe, so we're going to try it together and see if it's any good. It looks good, and I like the idea because I love the flavors, so I don't see why it wouldn't work in a vegan version. Slice these in rounds fairly thin, and then we're going to heat up the frying pan and lay them in and add a little bit of oil to the frying pan and lay them on the bottom. If you're oil free, don't add the oil to the egg mixture and don't add the oil to this, but I do think that this kind of needs a little oil in there. Poor Soph. It's raining outside and there was some thunder, and every time there's some thunder she wedges herself under the love seat in the living room there because she doesn't like the sound, and I always feel so bad for her. Poor thing. So I'm going to lay these in here. The thing with TikTok recipes is they never give you the actual measurements for anything, so you watch it and you kind of got to guess what it is that they're doing. All right, so that is starting to get warm, and then what you do is, once these are sizzling a little, then you add the mozzarella. Okay, so these are starting to sizzle. I turn that up to medium-low, and then what you do is you add cheese all around this. And then I'm going to add a little bit of Italian seasoning over top of that. And then I'm going to turn this down and cover it. And I'm going to leave it until that cheese is melting before we put our egg mixture and our tortilla on. So I'll be right back. Let's see how it looks. Awesome. Cheese is melting. And so now I'm going to give this a shake. And I'm going to pour a little bit over this just to cover. So just go slow. Now let's give it a shake. And now I'm going to cover this again. Make sure it's down on low. And let that cook a little bit until it sets a little bit. We'll see how it is. I'm going to add the tortilla to the top. Just press down on that. And then just let it continue. Because we want it to stick to the mixture. That's why we're adding it when the egg mixture isn't fully set. And then we're just going to let that sit again for a couple of minutes, keeping an eye on it to make sure it's not burning. Okay, I'm assuming it's done. I've left it for another, I don't know, 3-4 minutes. I don't think it was a full 5. So now we want to flip it. All right, look at that. That looks good. So I'm just going to let it, the tortilla toast just a little bit on the other side, and then we're going to pull it off and just drizzle it with a little bit of pizza sauce, and then fold it. Oops. And now I'm going to fold this over. And cut it and see how it is. Sure hope this is good because I went to a lot of trouble to make it. Let's see what this looks like. What do you guys think? That looks good, doesn't it? Let's give it a taste. I'm a little nervous, but excited at the same time. Hot. That's really good. I gotta say, that's really good. Perfect combination of flavors. Guys, this is a good recipe. And it's worth making this egg. You can use it for all of the things that you would use eggs for. You can scramble it. I don't usually. But I will use it to make little omelets, to make breakfast sandwiches. I will use it also to make frittatas. I hope you guys are having some good weather, and I will see you next Wednesday.